we're going to go ahead and get started and let people join in on the fun as we go along. That's all right with everyone, because I want to make sure I'm respectful of everyone's time. Get your hour in. I'm going to give y'all a strong, honestly, I set these up probably just to give y'all a strong 30 and then let y'all ask questions, and then we're going to go about your day. So usually I'm not going to have like a presentation style. Before today, I made a little PowerPoint just to put the visuals with my thoughts and to keep me accountable and on track, because sometimes I can get a little long-winded. But something struck me as far as this week and why I wanted to bring up the topic today is because I work with a nonprofit as far as career development for upcoming youth. And this past Thursday, I was meeting with the juniors and senior group. And of course, after we talked about the career stuff, me being the counselor that I am, of course, I wanted to just create space and allow them, space to be able to talk about how they feeling about, George Floyd, the racial climate in this country, on top of Corona. Just give them, that space to be able to vent and talk about it. We had some great conversations. But something from that conversation struck me was when this girl that is a rising senior, she said she was at one of the protests here in Memphis. And she was like, so it started off, smooth, peaceful, so on and so forth. But then all of a sudden, this song started playing. And I want y'all to kind of see if y'all can guess what song it is. When you think about Memphis, if you're not from Memphis, you probably don't think of this song. But if you think about Memphis in terms of how Memphis has been depicted in movies and media and stuff like that, you might be able to come up with what this song is. So she was sitting there in the crowd and she was listening and she heard "Whoop That Trick" being played. And she was like, this march just turned real ghetto real fast. So it all of a sudden went from a peaceful protest to a rally. Kaylin said, set it off. Hey, that's close. But it went from, a peaceful little protest, no justice, no peace, to all of a sudden, I'll say, go on to say maybe hood ratchet, and took that kind of element towards it. And so she said that the thing about everybody rallying, everybody protesting, is that there's no structure, there's no organization, there's no set thing that all of us collectively are pushing for, something that we're all collectively going against. And so that really put things in perspective for me that, we got to get, our stuff together as far as what everybody's specific roles is. Because I'm gonna be honest with you, I ain't gonna be out there protesting. One, coronavirus is still out there. Two, it's too hot. And I just, all the people, corona and the heat, I just can't do it. And so that's just not the direction that I personally feel empowered to go through. And so but everybody has a specific role in terms of this movement that we'll say, we want to call it Black Lives Matter, whatever you want to call it, racial injustice, the new civil rights movement, whatever direction you want to call it, we all have a specific role in that. And so this session is all about empowering you guys and getting a clear kind of direction on where everyone can reach one in certain aspects. So with that being said, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. Like I said, I got a small presentation. This ain't going to be, super complicated. But this is basically what everybody can do to really support the movement and in the direction that we're going, because everybody can do something. But before we do that, we got to, of course, look at the past. And so when we think about the civil rights movement really kind of started with the desegregation of the military, and then progressed for about 15-ish, 20 years before the Civil Rights Act was happening, before Martin Luther King's death, before we really had a significant amount of change. And so what I wanted to point out here are these key pivotal moments that I just want to point out, because there are a lot of moments that happen, and it happened all across the United States. But I want to point out these specific characteristics of it. So in the top left corner, you see, of course, Martin Luther King, the face, and he's presenting his "I Have a Dream" speech right here. And what I want and I don't want to necessarily speak particularly to the "I Have a Dream," but I want to speak to everybody that was like him, the great orators of his time, him, Malcolm X, W.E. Du Bois, all those people who were the orators, who were the galvanizers, the unifying voices that brought everybody together. And so some people are like that. I personally am not. I am not that type of person who's going to, just get up, grab the mic, and just pour out my heart like a pastor Sermon on the Mount for 20 minutes to an hour. That's just, I have the ability to do it, but that's just not my natural go-to. But that doesn't make everyone else that is not less important. Everybody has a role. And so when we move over to the top right, what that is Brown versus Board of Education. And so since some of you know that obviously in the 1800s, there was Plessy versus Ferguson, which is where separate but equal came into play. This particular case, of course, is what integrated schools. And the reason, and I know people have, of course, mixed emotions about, well, desegregation was the worst thing to happen for the Black community. You can have your opinions of that, but the really purpose of this particular case was to give us access to those bigger resources, to give us access to the education that we just couldn't fund because of things like redlining, because of all the resources that were not coming to the Black community. We needed to be able to come forward and have access to that. So Brown versus the Board of Education was the collective unifying of course, people who are educated, people who can gather resources, people who can speak against injustices in a courtroom. So of course we need people who are lawyers, people who are politicians, people stuff like that. So everybody has that specific role. Now in the bottom right of your screen, what you're looking right there is representative of our economic power. And that is the Montgomery bus boycott. And so the thing about that I love about this particular moment is not only did this show what we now know today as the African-American dollar, that we have now, of course, a $1.4 trillion spending power, which is spent across several things. But this represented that we can collectively come together and show out as far as when we want something to move. We don't have to wait on a policy change. We don't have to wait on this. We can move and be empowered and come together and do something. And the thing that I love about this, that I recently found out about the bus boycott, was that this wasn't just a couple months. This boycott lasted 381 days. 381 days. And we today, of course, are seeing, before George Floyd, we would see about a week's worth of Black Lives Matter. We'd see the person's face for about a week, and then we move on to the next thing. But nothing's really getting solved. But we have to have the attitude of 381 days. Like, we're going to march, we're going to keep pushing, we're going to keep coming together until there is an actual solution. But everybody has a role, and everybody can do that. And so some of you are, of course, you're not necessarily the people who are going to protest. You're not necessarily people like MLK who are going to speak out. Maybe you don't have the education. Maybe you don't have like the cachet to be able to really pull off something like in a big, huge courtroom, economic resources. But we all can support those people in our community. And that's why I want to point out the bottom right, the bottom left. That is what you see here is the nonviolent training. So even though, of course, MLK, of course, pushed out nonviolence, he didn't just send out people just say, okay, yeah, just go ahead and just don't fight back. We're going to prepare you to be able to face that. So you see my man blowing the cigarette smoke in the face, pulling hair, of course, saying nigga, 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 all that. They went at it and they prepared and empowered our youth and everyone to be able to stand strong together. And so whatever your role is, everybody has a place in this particular movement. So I don't want you to look at, the MLKs. I don't want you to look at the rallies. I don't want you to look at, all the people that are, very active and say that, okay, well, that's not me, or they got it. And what I'm doing on my role is just of non-importance. That's not the type of attitude we have to have as Americans that want this difference. And so what I want to do is empower everyone with this concept, this theory that I use when I work with companies, when I work with nonprofits, when I work with all the people that I work with. And it comes from this concept of, when you know what your behavior is, when you know how you're wired, that helps you flow and that helps you go in the direction that you should go. Because when you have people like MLK who can speak, who can be out front, who can speak, and you got the people in the back who are willing to support him like Montgomery, and you got the people who are acting strategically like Brown versus Board of Education, and then you got the people that are supporting everything along the way, filling the gaps. That is when you have a structuring, that's when you have a full-blown thing in motion. And so everybody has a different piece in this movement. And so, like I said, when I work with companies, I typically start with what I like to call welcome to the jungle. And so everybody falls into a different category as far as these animals. Now, I'm going to break these down very quickly for you. I usually take 45 minutes to an hour. For people who I'm working with one-on-one, I go through this. But for you guys, I'm going to give y'all just a brief overview, and I'm pretty sure you'll be able to pick up where you guys fall. And so first of all, we're going to break down whether you are outgoing or reserved. And then, of course, we're going to go if you are task-oriented or you're people-oriented. So let's start with, of course, everybody's favorite, the lion. And so as you can see on the screen, they're control, they're results-oriented, idea, decisive, and patient, results, challenge, straightforward. See it on the screen. But so your lions, people that are lions, are your outgoing, task-oriented animals. But they are typically the leaders of the pack. They're the ones who are going to be the spear. They're the ones who are going to be the out for the achievers. They're the ones who want to succeed on a high level, boom, boom, boom. And usually they're the ones who are a little rude, because they say what they mean what they say, and they don't really care about your feelings. They just care about the results. But those people are usually the most empowering, because they're the ones who are willing to push the envelope forward and say, hey man, I know you can do it, so I need this to get done. And everybody has their role in this. And so the people that have this role in the movement, they might be the ones that say, organize, say, hey, we need this done. Hey, I'm going to do this. Let's go. And so now, before I go forward, I want everybody to kind of start, when we look at these animals, I want you to kind of start to think about, okay, where do I fit in? Maybe that's not me, all that good stuff. I want to also say about the lion is that the lion does not mind conflict. So if you hate conflict, if you hate having to talk to people, about different stuff, like, you're probably not lying, or your lion is very low. And so the next one, our other extroverted animal, is what I call the flamingo. Now, as you can see, we got enthusiastic, we got warm feelings, we got relationship expressive. They are our outgoing, people-oriented animals. So they're all about the people. They're the ones who are going to encourage you. They're the ones who are going to say stuff that's going to galvanize you, that's going to get the experience together. So these are our speakers. These are our poets. These are our people who create videos, who create content that are all about that energy, that positivity. And they're the ones who are going to stir you up emotionally. So they're the ones who need to be at the rallies for sure. They're the ones who need to be screaming, no justice, no peace, all that good stuff. And that's where everybody in that category can fall and fit in. But of course, that goes beyond just rallies. That goes between in your communities, in your mentorships, and things like that. Those are the people who we need that lead the people, who are the encouragers, who are constantly optimistic. They're constantly appraising you. They're constantly willing to get you excited and energized. And excuse me, I just received a text about somebody trying to get in. And so if you're a flamingo, you might not like conflict. You might not like being necessarily out front, but you know that you have the ability to get a crowd going, you have the ability to get some energy going. And so whatever lane that is, that's what you need to do. And so, of course, okay, Kameron, you're talking about the extrovert animals. I'm not really what I would consider myself an extrovert. Me neither. So what about us introverted? I got something for you too. And so when you think about a chameleon, you think about somebody who's very adaptable, who can change with each environment. But in this sense, you are the introverted or the reserved, people-oriented animal. So I'm majority chameleon. So I work great with small groups of people. I work great in one-on-one settings. So when I'm in a counseling session, or I'm in a coaching session, or I'm in a training session, and I can actually feel and engage with people and listen to people, I'm not going to say something that's necessarily going to excite you or energize you, but I'm going to say something that speaks directly to what your situation is. And so when you think about chameleons, your role is to be the best support system that you guys can be. The people that were doing the nonviolent trainings, primarily chameleons, because they knew that they might necessarily not be on the front lines, but they'll be on the back lines, making sure that when MLK gets in, they have a hot meal ready to eat. When we need to pass out flyers, I'll pass out flyers. Pick up the water bottles, I'll pick up the water bottles. I'm do whatever I can to support what we got going on. And the last one is what I call the turtle. And so the turtle is task oriented like the lion, but since they're reserved, they want to see the quality of it at its maximum capacity. They want to see that it's accurate. They want to see that it makes sense to do this all the way to the maximum ability that it can be, because they want the quality of it to be excellent. And so in this role, those are the people who need to be the strategists. Those are the people who need to be looking in your community, in your district, and saying, okay, what lanes can really be changed? What, as far as being a district politician, what can we do in this particular district of African-American communities? Why don't we have resources and across the street does in just one change of a zip code? These are the people who are going to look at things and see how we can really make things better and see that we're moving in the right way. Because if we move too fast, then we're just wasting energy. If we have just rally after rally after rally, but we don't have no plan to strategize and move forward in motion with, demanding this, demanding that, then we're all just putting a lot of passion forward. And while I love the passion, we want results too. And to be able to make the best results, everybody has to be able to move in the direction that they should be. So if you are a turtle and you don't want to do the rallies, you ain't got to do the rallies, but you can make some organization and structure and give them something to protest about, something specific. Defunding the police is specific. Diluting those funds to education in those minority communities is specific. Putting somebody on the city councilman is specific. And so everybody has that role that they naturally fall into. Now, some of you can be like me. It's very rare that one person is like all this and nothing else. So you probably have some aspect of all of these animals. Me personally, I'm primarily a chameleon. And my second superpower is the lion. So if I got a whole bunch of chameleons who are reserved, who don't want to speak out, who maybe don't have a lot of confidence, but they just want to support, if you put me in a room with those people, I'm going to get annoyed, and eventually my lion's going to kick in and say, okay, let's get it going. Let's do this, boom, 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 and let's move forward. And so you got to figure out where exactly you fall. But the second thing, after you figure out how you're wired and what it is that your gifts, I want you guys to pick a lane. And so I call these lanes, of course, 5 E's, so they're easy to remember. And that's education, economic, election, empowerment, energize, and etc. And so for the education piece, the reason why we have such a generational racism is because of the school system. Because quite frankly, and I'm not talking about the people who are, Bubba Gump, who's flying high with his Confederate flag and and is overtly racist. I'm not talking about them. I'm talking about everybody that's in the middle that just doesn't know. That's never heard of the Tulsa massacre. That's never heard of the Montgomery bus boycott. That's not heard of all these situations. I remember when I went to a majority white community, but the high school was pretty diverse. But honestly, I was probably taught that the Black Panther Party was more so an aggressive, borderline, maybe terrorist group. It wasn't until older that I figured out that Black Panther was just self-defense, but they were also doing the free breakfast lunch. They were doing the know your rights. They were doing as far as progressive. They only got violent when you brought the smoke. But that wasn't particularly projected in my education. So some of us have to take on that role as far as really educating people, and not just Black people, but the white people too. All of us have that role in making sure that our kids have the resources that they need as far as education. So I know and of course, I know this would be a toss-up. I don't have kids, but for those of us that are parents watching this on replay, of course, you might have a bind between sending your kid to the public school that's down the street, might not have all the resources, or sending them to a private school that has the resources but less diversity. And so that's something that you got to decide between yourself and the legacy that you're trying to build, as far as where you want your children to experience. But what's very important also is, of course, the economic structure. So as we saw with the Montgomery bus boycott, we have power when we choose collectively to support or not support a certain business. But we got to get it together. It's so funny because a couple of weeks ago I sat on a panel. Well, not a panel. It was more of a support group for 6th through 12th graders, and somebody said, we need to boycott people like Amazon and Walmart. And I said, okay, now Walmart maybe, Amazon absolutely not. Why? Because Amazon provides an excellent service. There is nobody that can provide 2-day shipping. Nobody. And that's why I said, hey, if they say nothing short of like, I hate Black people, I'll N-word this, and I don't support, which they obviously did not, then they still gonna get my support. They still gonna get my money because nobody right now is providing that excellent service. So when we talk about economy, when we talk about buying power, and don't let the word economic like scare you, that's just the shifting of money. That's just the exchange, money be moved from one place and going to the other. When the economy is good, a lot of people have money. When the economy is bad, the people up top have the money. And so when we talk about economic structure and economic lane, we not only have to figure out, okay, who are we going to support, who are we not going to support, but what can you do as far as a role as, some of y'all are trying to be a business owner. Some of y'all are trying to partake in real estate like me. I'm planning on buying my first real estate property before the year's out. But everybody has a role in this economic lane in terms of how you're spending your money, where you're spending your money, and of course, getting those people to do it together. So if you guys want to really boycott Starbucks because they said we don't allow our employees to wear Black Lives Matter shirts or pins, then that can really make a difference. Because I'm willing to wager that Starbucks probably got some politicians in their pocket. Guaranteed. But we have to be willing to flex and do that. And which, of course, brings me to my next point of election. Of course, we want to, get Agent Orange out of office. But we also have to look at, of course, our local, county, and state elections. I'm going to be honest. I've been living in Memphis for going on 5 years now. Never participated in a local election in 5 years. And I'm sure there's many people who have done that, but my mom had a conversation with me and said, you know what, we got to do better, because not only do we need to get out there and vote, but we got to be an informed voter. We got to know the people that we're putting in office. We got to know all these people. She said she looked on the ballot one year and she saw one person for coroner. And she was like, okay, so I'm just supposed to hope and pray that this coroner is actually a good person and actually somebody that's going to actually do the job correctly. Because if not, then they could be all types of crooked. They could be hiding the dead bodies. They could be moving it here, moving it there. And so we gotta not only vote in our local and state election, but we also have to start looking at people to put in those positions. I had a conversation with, like I told you, I'm working with a nonprofit. And on the Wednesday, I work with the junior high class, the 6th through 8th graders. And in that class, somebody said, I'm interested in law. I don't know if I want to be a lawyer, judge, or whatever, but I'm interested in law. Do you know that my first phone call, as soon as I got off that, was to somebody that I know that just finished law school? And I said, hey, can you come talk to this class? And she said, absolutely. I'm studying for my bar right now, so I can definitely speak to all this climate. Each one of us knows somebody to be able to empower people. So we got to also create those leaders in our communities. We all, of course, want our children to be great at sports. We want them all to be, this or that. But how many of us have really sat down and said, you know what? I could see you being the next mayor. You got that gift. You got that natural whatever. How many of us have actually sat down and looked at our youth and said, yeah, I could see you really making a difference, whether it's in nonprofit, whether it's being the mayoral office, whether it's the council, whether it's as a policeman, whether it's as the county sheriff. Each one of us has that network to be able to put those people in the positions that we need. Because when you look at the breakdown of, and I'm also tiptoeing in empowerment too. When you tiptoe in the lane of, the corporate executive levels, so first of all, you barely see any of us there. Any of us that are Black, brown, in the CEO level of these companies. But what you're also going to see is that those of us that are there, Chief Diversity Officer. What? So I'm only here because I'm Black. I'm only here because I'm brown, because I can speak to the diversity. We got to demand more. We got to empower our youth to not only be able to talk to our culture, but to be able to rise within the ranks of somebody else's culture. So if that means, okay, I'm going to send my my child to Boy State, which is a collective group that is in Arkansas. It's a great program. I'm going to send them to Boy State so they can not only have cultural relevance, but also learn systems. So they can learn that. I'm going to send my boy, not just to band camp, but I'm going to send them to this leadership program to be able to grab the skills that they need. I'm going to put them in a mentorship program with a successful Black man that is not dunking a basketball. We got to be able to put our youth in positions and empower those that really need that push. And not everybody, unfortunately, the best people don't always make it to the top because they don't necessarily have the resources, because they live in these disenfranchised communities. So those of us that have made it out of those circumstances, those of us who can do a little something, if we can connect people to the lawyers, to the politicians, to the successful business people, to the people that can speak to people on this call, then we can make the difference as far as the long term beyond just 2020. The most successful people move in 10-year slots. So what do you want your town to look like in 2030? That needs to be what the question is. What do we want our communities, our Black communities, Detroit, Memphis, Chicago, Atlanta, all these places that we are, what do we want those communities to look like in 2030? And what am I doing to build towards that? And last, of course, not least, we need those people who be the energizers. So the flamingos, this is where you come in. You're the ones who are going to constantly be the ones that remind the people, hey, we still got a movement to go out here. We still got to make these videos. We got to crank out this content. We got to do something about this. We got to energize that people. And of course, when I say et cetera, don't look at et cetera like, oh, he just ran out stuff to talk about. Et cetera is everything else in between. From having conversations with your family, having conversations with your spouse, having conversations at work that may or may not be comfortable. And the et cetera is everything else in between, because there's always going to be more work to be done. Always. We had a black president for 8 years. He did great for the economy, nothing for criminal justice. Which, honestly, I can't all put on him, because we're the ones who still voted those same people into their particular offices, into their particular judges' seats. The ones that send two people of the same age, gives one 21 years, gives one 6 months. And I'm pretty sure you can guess the colors of each one. And so we always have to be constantly moving the needle until we have not just equality, but equity. But everybody has a certain lane that we all fall into. And so I wanna shout out Kaylin right now, because Kaylin, before George Floyd's passing, she organized an event where people of color in different healthcare fields came forward and talked about their experiences and talked about, how they got where they got. And I know events like that is what we need to empower our youth so that they can create the change that they need. Everybody has a specific thing. And I don't want you necessarily to think that, okay, I'm not necessarily in a mentorship group, so should I go join one? If you don't like kids, stay where you at. Please, stay where you at if you don't like kids. But you can do what you can do in your lane, in your kitchen, in your video, with your phone and your things. We all have a place to do those things, whether it's at work, whether it's in the classroom, whether it's in the community, wherever it is. Each one of us has the superpowers to be able to fit in a certain lane. And so when you get in that certain lane, I need you to max out where they're at. If you're a flamingo, I need you to max out at the protests. I need you to max out in videos. I need you to max out in encouraging people. If you're a leader, I need you to be able to, yeah, this ain't gonna work. Yeah, we need to do that. Okay, move here. Yep, let's do this. All right, let's go. If you're a supporter, you need to be encouraging people, and you need to be in groups like this. You need to be talking to people, making people comfortable to be able to have the conversation. And if you're the strategist, you need to be thinking about how we can get this thing better. Everybody has a role that can make a significant impact in what we're doing together, but we have to be able to work structurally together as one. All right. So I'm curious into how you guys are feeling. Let me stop sharing my screen. I'm curious as to how you guys are feeling as far as the last couple of weeks. It's been going on 2 weeks now since he passed away. George Floyd had 2 funeral services. And I'm noticing that the social media traction, at least on my timeline, is starting to slow down a little bit. So I'm curious as to what everybody's mood temperature is as far as where we at right now. As I finally enjoy my brunch. That's probably cold by now.
Okay, so.
Yes, I got go ahead.
Oh, sorry.
Go ahead, Russ.
Oh, I was gonna say I'm gonna miss the first portion of the presentation or whatever, but you were touching on some really good things, and some things I do agree with. But I would just, I guess, question how can we, I guess, figure out ways. I know you were talking about ways that we can, find people that are into these different sectors that can help us move towards a great movement to make changes. So as far as changing, a police officer racially being pro, I feel like we're not going to be able to change it, but what can we do to change, just touching on, say, police brutality to make sure, someone's not just getting killed because they're black. And then that should be considered a hate crime, and then they get a death penalty. How can we change none of those officers ever getting any, time? How can we change, education where, we have poor, education systems, and most of our people are in impoverished area. How can we really make an impact to change that? And I think that's gonna be the rule, because I feel like we're not gonna be able to change racism or being racially profiled, because that's instilled in, though whatever those people are, their heart. Maybe we can change some other people, but I feel like it's still not gonna be able to change from another month from now or another 2 months from now. Another unarmed black man getting killed and publicly lynched. That's how I look at it, because that's what it is, a public lynching. So that's what I got to say. But
you're absolutely right. And the thing about it is we got to figure out which part is the short game and which part is the long game. And so in the long game, I'm speaking to the youth. So those, like I said, the kid that wants to be a lawyer, I'm hoping he stays in Memphis. I'm hoping that he, like, wherever.
Right, that's why I'm big into mentorship as well. Yeah, right.
Wherever he's at, we got to empower him to either, wherever he goes, come back. Or if he goes, he needs to go and play an active role in his community. And so the long game is, of course, the youth and the systems and processes, because the people that are in the police they're there, and they're probably not going to go anywhere for minimum 5 to 10 years. But we got to get more people in there to make them uncomfortable.
But is that going to really, that's true. We got to make that uncomfortable. And I feel like more people that have platform and resources to make that change, to put more resources into changing it, because I feel like we are nowhere close where, I mean, the last 30, 40, 50 years, I mean, you can go even back, like Rodney, even before that, like Emmett Till, like it's plenty of like cases where none of these officers or none of these people get any time. Like Michael Vick, he did more time than all these officers, and he was dogfighting. Do you not know how common dogfighting is? Like in our, like this period, like like anywhere, like people do that. That's just like what you do. Like my grandfather, they, you know, I'm from Memphis, but you know, most of my family is from Mississippi, but that's all our families do. Like that's crazy. That's like beyond like, you know, grasping like that. So I feel like I'm with you on how can we change those process, like to make sure that that is a hate crime and they should get charged. I mean, I feel like it should be definitely an eye for an eye. Like, that's how I look at it, because that's a hate crime. Like, you killing me because I'm black. Like, white people always, or now I'm not gonna say white people, but mostly racists or people that don't like people of color, they always find a way to put a knee to our neck. Like in anything we do, even if we're famous, like Michael Jordan, Oprah, like anybody that's on any level and they're doing success and they a person of color, they're looking for a way to put a knee to their neck, like it bring them down. This is how the world operates. So I'm with you on that. How can we make more progress to change the whole process to make sure that when it happens, you know, those are repercussions, like people think twice before they do it. Like, that's what I feel like. And I don't know what we can do to really make a lot of progress towards that.
Right. And I don't want you to stress yourself out as far as, because that can get really dark really quick when you start looking at, dang, we got this and we got this, we got this. So I really want you, because I know you're in the mentoring, I want you to max out in your lane. And so when we talk about, we've had like brief conversations about mentorship and things of that nature, but that's where we need to max out at. We need to make sure that we're talking to as many young Black and brown girls and boys about the direction that they're going in. Like, show them, okay, the system is broken. You guys that are coming up, the Generation Z, what can you guys do to do this? Me personally, I'm doing this. I'm talking to you guys, and I'm also voting, and I'm also doing this thing. What lane do you guys do? Whether it's corporate, whether it's legislation, whether it's nonprofit, whether it's economic and financial. Each one of us has that specific role, because when the thing is, we always have this crab in a bucket mentality as a African American community. Unfortunately, we do. But the thing is, everybody can make a difference. Everybody can make $1. Just because I get this customer doesn't mean you can't go out and get 10 customers. And so we have to, like you said, we have to collectively come together and make a strategic plan about where we're going to attack this first. And so if that means making sure everybody is registered, not only you, but everybody at your local church, everybody at your job is registered, and we're all voting in our interest, and making sure that our mayor, our attorney general is going to come down from his seat and strike down the police officers that do wrong, like the mayors in Atlanta did, like the attorney general in Minnesota did. Like, we put those people in position, but we got to know who we're voting for. So
I agree. That's all I'm going to say, because we have to know that they're going to actually be doing the right thing. And, you were just touching on like a lot of like sticking together. I feel like a lot of our people just, I mean, any race or any culture, that you always have different pockets. Like even people of any race or culture have different pockets where you have certain people that do certain things, but everything I feel like is almost in a gang in a sense if you really look at how things are organized or how things operate in this world that we live in. But I mean, I feel like the hardest part is making sure that all of us stick together and continuously like work on this, like you said, every day, like 10 years from now, like 5 years from now, making the right move. Because I mean, it's been so many years, and I feel like it's like we're going in different directions, especially with social media now. That like we still like so many avenues you can kind of get lost in the I guess in the sauce you can say lost. There's so many things you can get lost in. So I mean, what can we do to make sure all of us really can stick on the same page and everything is efficient? So,
Right.
but that's all I have to say about everything. But I'm gonna let some other people talk.
Good deal. Caitlin, you want to jump in there?
Yeah, so I really agree with everything that he was saying. You can't get bogged down when you're thinking about how far we have to go. But I will say action speaks a whole lot louder than words. And we have to start having solution-based discussions. So kind of like you were saying, whenever I host a discussion, it's always, okay, you said that, but now what are we going to do? I completely agree with mentoring, because if we don't start building those professionals, we won't ever have them. So that's my thing. I started an organization on UCA's campus where I have students in healthcare programs mentoring high school students, because you can't do what you don't know. So the more we educate our youth, the more we educate them on the laws and, different healthcare fields out there, ways to become judges and lawyers, and not putting them in a box, kind of like you were saying, where their only options are to be an NBA star or whatever. Nothing is wrong with that, but we need to expand the minds of our youth by educating them. And one thing I feel that we don't really do is, once we make it to where we want to go, we don't reach back. We don't, turn around and say, okay, this is what I learned. This is what helped me. Let me try to help somebody else who didn't have that. What I've learned is a lot of minority students don't have the tools needed to be successful in higher education or any other area for that matter. So it's up to us to find the need, basically conduct the needs assessments on, okay, what exactly do we need? Yes, we need the marches. Yes, we need, people on social media for the cause, spreading the word. But what are we actually going to do with this? Kind of like you were saying, Cam, a lot of the hype about, George Floyd's death is dying down on my timeline. And I feel like that's the biggest issue. Like, we don't ever come out until something happens or somebody dies. This should be a constant thing going on. This should always be on our radar as far as ways to empower people of color, because if it's not a constant fight, then we're not going to see change. And our generation is a microwave generation. We want to see change right then and there, because I've dealt with that too. But once you set up a process, once you set up the steps and the blocks and be strategic about how you move, then over time you will see and reap from all the things you planted. So that's all I have to say.
Big facts. And so what we have to, everybody has to get in position and where they're at. So I don't know those of y'all who are Dave Chappelle fans, but Dave Chappelle yesterday released about a 30-minute special that really talked about it. And so he is a person that is in his lane of energizing and galvanizing people on his particular platform. And so you're not going to see him necessarily running for office. You're not going to see him necessarily, well, you might see him at a town hall meeting. You might see him there. But he knows I have a voice, and my voice has power, and I'm going to use it to max it out in its capacity. And so when we all find our particular lanes, that's where we make the biggest impact. So if you're like Kaylin and you want to look, we got to reach back and we got to get these youth in the community. So I'm not going to necessarily have the megaphone. I'm not going to necessarily be making the poetry, the videos, stuff like that. I'm going to be behind the scenes mentoring these youth. And then some of y'all might be like my boy Wesley, and you trying to build that economic power up. You trying to build up the dollar in the Black community. You trying to start your own business so that you can buy back the neighborhoods, so that you can say, okay, the city's trying to gentrify everything, raise up the prices, move all the people of color out into this area. I'm going to build up and I'm going to buy back the community. So where I can then even empower more people, so I can talk to the drug dealers and say, look, man, I know you're only doing this because you need to keep your lights on. You got to feed your baby mama. You got to do all these things. Let me show you another way. So when we start talking about this crap that's Black on Black crime, we're making a significant change in our communities by truly empowering that. So just because we're not seeing Black Lives Matter or we're seeing it die down, we still got to keep doing what we do. So if that means hopping on the phone, hey man, you registered to vote today? I know you ain't voted last year in the election, but you registered, right? Because we gotta get this fire hydrant in this area. We gotta do this, that, and the third. It's all about the collective. So it's a continuous grind. 381 days sticks out. If you're an ET fan, 381 days of consistent doing things. So just because it's not on social media doesn't mean we stop moving. Just because it's not on social media doesn't mean we don't keep spreading awareness. We don't keep having those tough conversations at work. So we gotta do what we do.
Can I speak now?
Yeah, go ahead, bro.
I feel like something that was very empowering to me, and I hate that it took as long as it took, but with my freshman year in college, African American Studies, well, we learned a side of Black history that was not taught in our public school system. You get what I'm saying? Right. Growing up, it's almost as if we were taught that Black history literally started at slavery. We never learned about Mansa Musa. We never learned about Marcus Garvey. Like you said, we were taught the Black Panther Party was violent, and militant versus what they did positive in the community. Believe it or not, we were taught Crips and Bloods was all about shooting each other versus community involvement and protecting neighborhoods. We were never taught this type of stuff. And believe it or not, the system in which we're brought up in systematically causes us to see ourselves as less than, literally it never fails where I'm from. When the new Jordans drop, a fight's gonna break out when they sell out. And it's going to hit the news every time. They're going to be there with news cameras for the fight to break out and put it on the news. And then, I grew up in a diverse community, and white people and Hispanics would always ask me, like, bro, it's just some shoes, what y'all fighting for? You know what I'm saying? Like, and it's that type of stuff where they consistently almost beat you down with this idea that over history, you've been nothing. You're nothing now. You will never be anything. And if you make it out of the quote unquote hood, or if you're college educated, consider yourself lucky. You get what I'm saying? And so I feel like part of empowering the youth is giving them true Black history. You get what I'm saying? For those that are religious, let them know that the people they read about in the Bible were Black. You know what I'm saying? Let them know that a lot of powerful things that have happened in history where they neglect to mention the skin tone of these people, a lot of times we have done way more than we're giving credit for. You get what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. And to me, that's the first.
I think you cut off Wesley, but you're absolutely right.
Nah, he just muted us all.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Let them know that you're not headed to the prison, or you shouldn't consider yourself lucky if you make it out of high school. Let them know that they're more than an athlete. You get what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. That right there, along with helping them in the career path and giving them a quote unquote lane, you almost have to debunk this myth that they're learning in the current school system, when it comes to who they are as Black folks. You get what I'm saying? And also with me, I mean, I've also learned, especially with this George Floyd incident, for the white folks willing to listen, you have to step out of your comfort zone and explain what you've experienced as a Black person, and that you feel as if the reason you were denied a certain opportunity or treated a certain way was due to the color of your skin. That's assuming they're willing to listen. I'm not saying get out here and fight nobody. You get what I'm saying? But my boss, believe it or not, this was last Thursday, took off work and called me on like Teams, like Skype, almost crying because he had finally watched the George Floyd video. And he wanted to ask, what is it like being a Black man in white America? Because he had been so closed off and closed-minded up until watching that video. But he couldn't even stomach the video, so he had to literally take off the rest of the day. But in that situation, you get what I'm saying? As much as, and he said some sideways thing to me in the past, you know what I'm saying? But I had to kind of step out of my comfort zone and let it be known, like, hey, bro, this is what it's like. Sad reality is we kind of used to this type of situation. Our parents prep us for this from day one. You know what I'm saying? But anyway, yeah.
And we got to also be able to stomach those conversations and not get offended necessarily when they ask it'll seem like a dumb question to us, but it's actually a legitimate question to them. So those of us that are in this lane that are called to do that, they have those tough conversations, because some of us, you don't need to be talking to nobody. You just need to chill out. But for those of us, we got to be able to have those tough conversations. And to your point, Wesley, matter of fact, everybody on this call knows at least one person that's our age that is a teacher. Everybody. I know Kaylin, I don't want to put you on blast, Kaylin, but I know probably half of her sorority sisters are education majors and are either up and coming educators or they're in education right now, working either in lower income communities or higher income communities, whatever it looks like. Each one of us need to be able to call, either reach out and say, hey, how you doing? You good? All that good stuff. I would love to come and talk to your class so they could get a look at what a Black counselor looks like. Because in the field of counseling, Black men are a double minority. So it's really important for me that they see what a Black man looks like. That's a conversation I can have. They need to look at Sane and be able to say, oh yeah, I work for, don't you work for the feds, Sane? Or at least work for the feds for a little bit. Yeah, he worked for, he not an officer, y'all, but he works for the feds. But to be able to open their eyes, because the education system doesn't tell us about Tulsa. It doesn't tell us about Mansa Musa. It tells us Black history starts at slavery. But Black history is out here thriving. And we got to put those thriving people in front of those faces in the youth, to your point, Weston. Anybody else want to hop in? What you talking about on Monday, Kaylin?
Okay, so basically next week I'm having like discussions every day. So Monday through Thursday, leading up to a virtual Juneteenth celebration that I'm having. Mm-hmm. And basically Monday I'm having teachers. So I think it's Silas, KJ, Kaylee. It's basically a panel of all Black teachers, and they're going to be talking about, how they discuss diversity with their students. What does African American history look like in their classroom? What it's like being a minority teacher, as well as the foundation of math, science, and reading for our students. And so you can follow me, Kaylin Hardman, on Facebook and register if you want to join that conversation. Like I said, I got stuff going on all week long, starting next week. And,
Kaylin
that's
in her lane, y'all. Kaylin out here in her lane. She maxing out.
No, but that's real, though. Like, you do have to find your lane, because for the longest, it was just built up frustration. Like, stuff when I was an undergrad, stuff happening on UCA's campus and feeling stuck. Like, what do I do? Where do I go? How do we change this? But as soon as you find where you can make a difference, like it's just mind blowing. And but yeah, that's what we're doing. And I do a lot of discussions for network purposes, because like you said, you know, if you don't know somebody, it's time to know some people, so that we can start having these discussions and educating each other and etc. So yeah.
Big facts. Look, y'all gotta find y'all lane. Y'all gotta do what you can in your particular space. So if maybe you're supposed to be a leader, hey, go out there and lead the pack, lead the charge. But if you like the empower, the supporter, the educator, whatever you at, yeah, we need to do that. And I want to particularly highlight like the career space, because those of us, everybody got to get money, but everybody has a specific calling or career that they're meant to be in, as far as whatever space you're in. So if you got to be the feds, like saying, like you got to do what you got to do, but you got to be a positive black man while you're doing it. If you got to be like Kaylin, y'all, Kaylin is occupational therapy. Not necessarily a social justice league, but she found a gap where she knows that she can come in and make a huge difference. You know what I'm saying? Mentoring, counseling, health, wherever your lane is, we got to max out where it at as that. So if that means, and some of y'all might roll your eyes at this, if that means we got to cut out CP time, if that means we got to be an excellent employee until, of course, we can become a business owner. But if that means we got to show up 5 minutes early, 10 minutes early, if that means we got to make sure that all of our I's are dotted and T's are crossed, if that means we got to do what we can to put the best representation as a black man, as a black woman as possible, then everybody can do that in their space. And so that's where I want, it's been official Power Hour. Appreciate y'all for jumping on. Anybody have any thoughts? I want to make sure everybody has a chance to say something if something's on their heart. If not,
I just want to say that this was real good. I enjoyed, listening to everybody's point of view. I definitely agree with everything that everybody, has said. It's definitely on us to find our lane and find out what we can do to help our community. I think that we're at a pivotal point right now, in the country, or even just with this, Black Lives Movement, where it can go in so many different directions. Everybody sees our future looking a different way. And so it's just a matter of zoning in on what way do we see our future individually, and just working toward that. And sometimes that means having tough conversations, with white people. And some people literally can't have those conversations. But one thing is true, is that we do need white people to be a part of the movement. We can't do it on our own. Somebody has to help us. And I think that's one thing I don't know if y'all have noticed it, but that's one thing that changed this time around, is something happened to white people and they got on board this time. And that's helped us so much to push and push and push. So we just got to keep talking to people and keep working.
Big facts. And don't get it twisted. The civil rights movement wasn't just us. The civil rights movement had the white people, brown people. We all were in there. And different things, causes things to stir us up. So for them, maybe it was Bloody Sunday. When they saw those people standing arm in arm, taking them dog bites, taking them hoses, they looked at that and it was like, hold on, they not fighting back. But they're still getting ate up, they still getting beat up, they're getting bludgeoned, they getting killed. And they still not fighting. Okay, this ain't right. I gotta do my part. And so for this particular thing, I think it was George Floyd just saying, look, I can't breathe. It's not right. And like you said, everybody has a lane, everybody has a role. So if that means you need to unify with your white brothers and sisters who are not Big Bubba with his Confederate flag, retiring from NASCAR. Not even gonna get on that. But if not him, the ones that are like, look, this ain't right. Whatever I can do to help, just let me know. Those are the type of people we need to ally with and show them a good representation of a Black man and a Black woman that is not animalistic or athletic or rap and sexual, glorified, all those things. So that being said, going once, going twice, sold. All right. If our hearts and minds are clear, we're going to go ahead and give it a wrap. We're coming back next week. I have not decided. So let me say this. All of the Saturday brunches, they ain't going to be like racially civil rights charged, but it's going to be empowering, definitely in the career direction, because I believe everybody has a lane. Everybody has something that they can excellently do, but we don't necessarily have a community or, the resources to be able to continuously build that up. So I definitely want this to be the space to provide that. So I might have somebody come on that I know that might be talk about building wealth, but different things like that. That's what I'm going to be doing for at least the summer, for sure. So hope y'all check in next week, same time, same place. Invite your people, bring them on the call. Let's get to work. All right. With that being said, y'all be blessed, and I'll see y'all next week.